Hello, everyone. Hey, I'm Doug Wilkerson with Central Christian Center. I'm a minister here with Central Christian Center and also with Saturday Night Life Recovery Ministry. Hey, my main job is to try to help people, and that's what we do here at Central Christian Center is try to help people, try to help them to have a better life. And one of the best ways to have a better life is to help them to have a better relationship or connection with God. And that's what we want to do. That's what we've been doing well, for a lot of years. I've been on staff since 1975. And so we're just trying to touch people, and we have touched people, but we're not done yet. So anyway, today, this is an encouraging word with Doug, and I want to share some thoughts with you. I know it's kind of a regular kind of a theme that I have. I was noticing it, and it's about dealing with how you think, because that's so important, because how you think determines how you feel, and how you feel determines how you behave. And if we want to have a better relationship with others, then that means we need to have a better relationship with ourselves and with God. And that has to do with how we think and how we feel, and of course, how we behave. So, I'll start off with a scripture out of Psalms 139, 23, and 24. This is out of the NLT. It says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxieties." Here, the psalmist is wanting God to come and test his anxious thoughts. And we need to look at what we're thinking about. We need to clean up our thinking, and how we feel is based on usually what we think, what we believe, or what we remember. And so we have to work on those things. We'll talk more about them. But today we're going to be talking about the 6 skills to stop overthinking everything. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I want to share one more scripture out of Deuteronomy 31:6 out of the NLT. It says, "So be strong and courage. Do not be afraid. Do not panic before them." He's telling us to be strong and have courage. That's a mindset, okay? That's it's trying to help us to gain control of our emotions, emotional regulation, okay? Emotional control. Uh, and so he says, don't panic in front of them. In front of them is people, things, situations, uh, difficulties, problems, because we're all going to have problems. Jesus promised that to us out of John. Okay, said in this world there'll be many tribulations, but he's there to help us, just like the scripture is talking about. Continue. "For the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will never fail nor abandon you." And that's good news. We really need to be able to grab a hold of that. And if you struggle with that thought because you think that he has abandoned you or he left you, think about it. Think about all the things that you got through. Was it just an accident, or did something or somebody, the Holy Spirit, God, help you through these situations of life? Because we all have divine moments, which is our evidence to help us to hang on to this hope, this faith that we're talking about here. And today I'm going to share some skills, some tools with you to help you to maybe engage in a little better way. Okay, that's what tools are about. The more tools you have, hopefully the better job you can do on yourself and in this world, in your family, in your job, in your church, in your community, in this world. So Are you really good at overthinking? A lot of us are. One of the reasons why we do that, I'm just going to jump ahead here. One of the reasons why we overthink, it's a coping mechanism to try to escape the reality of the present. So if we have idle time, then we find things to overthink about or ruminate about or worry, anxious, spun up emotionally to distract us from the present reality, because we're afraid. We don't think we can do it. We can make it. We're overwhelmed. We have no internal capacity to feel like we're able to endure this situation. And God wants us, He wants to help us so that we can know that we're capable and resilient. Okay. So, have you ever asked yourself, when somebody calls you on the phone and they want to talk to you, or they want to get with you, maybe the boss says, I'd like for you to be in my office. I've had that happen. I've had a time span between what somebody, a request or a demand, and your mind can start spinning up things. You can say, well, what do they want? What's going on? What's happening? What's on their mind? Or you can just say, this is bad, bad, bad. This is really bad. And we get over anxious, wound up. We could break out in hives, start sweating, and actually make ourselves physically ill if we're not careful. That's overthinking, and we have to stop. We have to learn how to stop overthinking so much. Okay, so let's go forward. Today we're going to be talking about at least 4 different types of overthinking. Okay, the first one is ruminating about the past. Okay, ruminating about the past, worrying about the past, thinking about the past, worrying about the future. Okay, we're trying to control the future. We've talked about that some. So we're going to talk number 3, analyzing our decisions, rethinking our decisions, what we did or what we didn't do. We continually turning that over, trying to make sure that we did the right thing. Like we can change the past. All we can do is go ahead and deal with the present. Okay. So we overanalyzing. And then number 4 is social anxiety. Being worried about what I said, what I did, what somebody said, how they acted, how they looked at me, how I think they're going to look at me, or what they might say in these interactions. What am I going to do when I show up to this meeting? Or and it's hard. Some of my least favorite things are trying to break in new lawyers or new bankers, new doctors. Because you're not. There's some uncertainty, but the fact of it is, if we can stop overthinking, spinning up all the negative possibilities, and have confidence that, well, we'll just take it one step at a time. One of the things, this isn't in my notes, but one of the things I used to do with bankers, I would go into them and I'd say, well, I'm not real sure about a lot now. I may need some help kind of processing this. And I kind of downplay myself a little bit, not trying to put myself down, but at the same time, trying to make myself comfortable. And that seemed to help me negotiate better and deal with it, instead of trying to be a big shot or a power player, which I'm not. But it just helps me. And so, and then I think it helps them a little bit, so they calms them down. So anyway, we're going to learn some of these skills, how to stop overthinking, and to help us to get back into living our life, that life that we want to really have, so we can enjoy it. That's what we're talking about. All right, 6 skills to stop overthinking. The first one is Notice it and name it. Your overthinking pattern. You have to first become aware before you're able to do anything about it. If you can't see it, you can't deal with it. And we have to be aware of what's going on here. So if we can notice it and then name it. I'm anxious, I'm upset, I'm unsure, I'm scared, then you have some place to start to deal with it instead of denying it, suppressing it, and avoiding it, okay? So the first skill is to stop overthinking, and that is to notice it and then name it. And, ruminating, overthinking, it's such a bad habit, okay? Just keep spinning that stuff over and over. Some people call it like the hamster wheel. You're just got your brain spinning because like mental activity is going to fix or give you a solution to a problem. Oftentimes, it stirs up difficulties. You know what I mean? So first, we got to get good at identifying that we are overthinking things. Okay, we're spinning things out of control because we feel overwhelmed. And we're going to be talking about some ways to deal with this later in the information. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and say you have to step back, choose to calm down. I kind of a mental thing I do with me is back in the old days when I learned to drive, I didn't learn to drive with a automatic transmission. It was standard transmission, and to slow down, oftentimes I would downshift, and so emotionally I oftentimes downshift to just kind of slow down and breathe and give myself time. Okay, it only takes just a few seconds, but it sure can adjust how you feel inside. So a few tips on how to do this onto the identifying your overthinking is when is to help you identify when is the time that you do that most. What time of the day or what event you seem to get spun up. Okay, and if you can be aware of your triggers, then that helps you then to be able to begin to deal with them. The second tip is to recognize situations, okay, that trigger you, that affect you, that cause you to get overwhelmed, so that you can know what and not be caught unawares. Okay, like well, I know I'm probably going to be a little nervous when I go into this situation, and that's okay. Everybody's a little nervous when I go in. You talk to yourself that everybody's a little nervous. It'll be all right. Just breathe and take it one step at a time. That's what we always have to do. That's the only way to do it, is one step at a time. You know what they say, inch by inch, it's all a cinch. Number 3 is focus on something else. You can distract yourself for a minute, focus on something else. Focus on a sunny day or a cloud or a bird or a flower before you go into this meeting, or a pleasant memory, something to kind of shift you emotionally, alter your emotional state. You can set alarms to help you to go ahead and ruminate. It's kind of like a ruminating time, worrying time, so you can just get it over with and say, all right, I spent my time doing it. Now I don't have to do that anymore, and then do something else. Okay. Number 2, set limits, which this is what that kind of creeped into the next one. It says set limits on overthinking. So now that you have maybe gotten better on noticing and some of the triggers and situations that cause you to overthink, then there's 2 approaches to help you to deal with this, and that's by scheduling and by having methods systems to help you to manage that, to set limits on it, how to process through it. So first one is schedule your rumination, okay, which we talked about. Schedule this worry time and a potential solution. All right. And most of the time, people don't even think about the solution side of their thinking or processing. They just continually keep thinking about the problem over and over. But it's good to recognize the problem, but then you need to go into the solution. What can I do here? Okay. Not why is this happening to me? We'll talk more about that in a minute. But what can I do? What action I can take? How can I see this differently? Things like that. So that you can process that. And one of the ways to help you to set these limits on it is by it's giving you that time. Number two is to don't worry in your head. Okay, don't just let it all spin around your head. Put it down on some paper, write it down, or journal. Okay. And some things that you can do in that writing down is what they call free writing. Okay, you just write your thoughts. You just write it. You don't analyze it. You just get it out. They also call that brain dump. You can do that, or you can do the locus of control, like what is my responsibility? What is it I'm supposed to do? What is not my responsibility? What's outside my control? Okay, and so that. Oh, and one of the ones I've done a lot in my early years is pros and cons. I think it was Abraham Lincoln that suggested, or Ben Franklin, one of those two. That you write down the pros and cons, and you're starting to you see the good stuff, the good side, and also the challenging side, and it helps you to process it. I've used that a lot throughout the years. So we just have to do that. Your brain wants to think, and it can't stand to be a vacuum. So it wants to put something in there. So you get to choose what direction your thinking is going to go. So, and your brain loves boundaries. So you set limits and times and frameworks of boundaries, like, and many of you say that people come up and say something negative, say, I'm not going there. I'm not thinking, but I'm not traveling that space. Okay. Right. You don't have to let stuff take up space in your head. You don't have to give them free rent and board. Okay. It was Martin Luther, the church reformer, that said, you can't control every thought. Like a bird flying over your head, you can't control every thought, like a thought flying over your head, but you can keep that bird from nesting in your hair. You don't have to let that thought land and take up residency. Okay, so I just reached back and got that. I didn't have that fully planned out. So, all right, number three, shift your attention from overthinking. So we have to shift our thinking. Okay. The third one here is that now that we recognize some limits, now we have to practice shifting our attention. So you get to choose where you're going to think, and your brain is like a thinking machine. It wants to think, and it has a lot of thoughts, and it can go down some scary roads if you allow it, and it can push you out of shape emotionally, or you can direct it. You are in charge of that. So it makes all these thoughts. Now, just because you have a thought doesn't mean that it's a helpful thought. Just because it's loud or frequent or intense doesn't mean it's true, and it doesn't mean that it's helpful. Okay. The scriptures, Romans 12:2 says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind or your thinking. Okay. All right. So we're talking about shifting your attention, and we have to learn to separate ourselves from our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. I'm much more than my thoughts. Okay. because my thoughts can come and go. I can choose to hold on to them, and I can choose to let go of them. I didn't know that at one station in my life. Okay, but you can. You can step back and observe your thought. That's called the observer theory, that you can observe what you're thinking. And that helps you can get clarity and helps you to bore down and see the truth. Because you can believe a lie, but if you'll bear down, you can also see the truth underneath that lie. So, 2 is practice mindfulness, and that is being in the moment, being present, and looking for clarity, having calmness, being connected. Okay. Number 3 is visualizing the shift through like changing a TV station. You don't like where you're thinking, so you just do the clicker, change the station. Back in, you still see it nowadays when you go through and you see, and they just shift, but they go to a different frequency. And you can do that. Now, I know it's not easy, it's difficult, it's hard, but you can do it if you practice it. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. Number 4, notice the present moment. And that is that the one tool that we have all the time is the present moment. When we get pulled and tugged, even if you have if it's hard for you right now to capture your thoughts when you're in the whirlwind, sometimes people need to dismiss themselves or go to the restroom or say, hey, time out for a moment, hold up or step back, figure out some way to escape the chaos of the moment and get into the present moment where you can find clarity, calmness, connectedness, and peace, connectedness with yourself, with the spirit, with truth. Because the fact of it is, when you do that, then you're able to think better, and your brain abhors a vacuum. So it's something's going to come in, and it's way better to have your focus on truth, on God, on love, on those things that you value most, that you want in your life. Sometimes we get pulled off of our core life values. We've talked about that. So are you choosing to be focused on those toxic ruminations, worry, anxiety, okay? Or will you use the antidote that's provided to us by taking a deep breath, letting our heart slow down, and let our spirit slow down, where we can have a shift and have that present moment. There was a time in my life where Linda was teaching school, and I was working here at the church, and when she would get done with school, she'd come in like a whirlwind, because she had all kinds of things she wanted to talk about, and maybe I was trying to put something together or study something or think about something, and mentally I may have been kind of slow emotionally because I was focused on something. But when she came in like a whirlwind. And when she did, it was like, bam. Linda's my wife. And it was always like, well, I don't know that we fought, but it was always very disruptive for both of us, because it wasn't pleasant. Okay. And it was like two tops. I don't know if you're familiar with tops, but you'd throw this top and it'd spin. And when two tops touch each other, they kind of are ejected in opposite directions. And that's kind of the way it was. And I thought, I don't like this. I don't like, because I don't like the way that I feel or I react to what's going on. And I wanted to do something about it. And I got that picture of tops, and I I recognized it, just like I'm talking about. I noticed it, and I noticed the time, okay, like we talked about, the triggers. And what I needed to do is recognize and be aware, and because I didn't want to be insensitive, I wanted to be sensitive. I was open to the sudden shift of her energy, which is not all that bad, particularly when you're expecting it, when you welcome it. Okay. And when I realized that stuff, it changed our interaction. There was no more of an issue for either of us. So the antidote is being in the present. Um, Here's some things that you can do, all right, to help you in that presence. List 5 things that you see and that you feel at this very moment. It's just an exercise. List some things that shifts your thinking. It helps you get focused in what you see and what you're feeling. List 5 things that you're hearing. Okay, hearing, if you're in a room, what you're hearing in the room. But then stop and listen. What are all the sounds in the room? And now, what sounds can you hear outside the room? Like right now in this room, real clearly, I hear the clock on the wall ticking. I hear the fan running across that. I hear the computer over here running. You know. But listen, and that helps you to get out of the interior of your brain and get out here. Okay. And so list 5 things that you can touch, textures, just shifting your focus to how this feels, how things smell. Not everything works for everybody, but these affect different parts of your brain, and so that helps you to not to get out of this overthinking dynamic. Notice your breath, how you're breathing. If you're really actually breathing deep through your stomach, not just in the top part of your lungs. Get out of your mind and get into your body, or recognize what's outside your body, what you can feel right now in your body, because you can really go through a feeling exercise like how are my little toes feeling? How are my big toes feeling right now? What am I sensing there? Oh, my heels. How many am I blinking? How much did I blinking? What's the sensation in my fingertips right now? Sometimes say, well, I never feel anything, but there's if you become more aware, you're less apt to get sucked into this overthinking stuff. Unless you go so far that you're afraid that there's a problem, that there's, like I have this pain and it's going to kill me, or stuff like that, going too far that direction. Okay. Shift from concrete thinking. All right. We want to shift to this concrete thinking that what you know is true, instead of abstract thinking. Okay, like everything's possibilities, or let's use some generalized thinking. All right, about how people think about you. I've talked with people, and they were talking about how they know how people are thinking about them. I said, so if you're walking down Main Street and somebody's across the street, you know what they're thinking about you. You know what they're feeling about you. Okay, and that's abstract thinking. Okay, you're reading their mind, you're reading their emotions, and is that really? Are you really doing that? You think you are, but is it really true? Is it absolutely true? So it's kind of vague, okay, and it's magical thinking, maybe even a little bit. So what we need to do is we need to be aware of that, because if you continue to be in that abstract way of thinking, you become very hopeless and helpless because you're not in concrete thinking, because there's nothing to stand on. There's no foundation. You have to find the truth, what is really true, what is rational, what's absolute, and that's your foundation. And then you can feel like you have some mental, emotional stability. Then you're not you're overly depressed all the time. You don't feel overwhelmed, and you don't let these thoughts of, well, why am I always in this state? Okay, mental state. Why is everything against me? Why are they doing that to me? Why? Okay, whys never get you anywhere most of the time. In fact, one person told me about that they wanted to change that why statement. So they said why is like a cuss word, and every time they used the why, or they thought the why, they had to contribute to their why jar or curse jar, and to help them to become aware of what's how much that has controlled them, to start to break that habit and to pull that around. And you know what? Money gets your attention. I found that out. So if you're and you say, well, a quarter or a nickel or maybe $1 is not all that much, but when I've worked with people to try to help them to get their own attention, I tell you what I've done. Do I have time? Ooh, I'm running out of time. Quickly, I would say if they want to break a habit, I said, well, how important is it to you? If you were to give it a money value, how important it would be, and I've had some to do $1, some that did $5, and some have more. And I said, all right, if this happens, then you will be penalized that amount of money. And when we meet next time, you bring that money with you, and then we'll burn it right in front of you. See, because if they just give it to me, or they give it to the church, or they give it to somebody, that seems so wasteful, and there's hardly no good way to rationalize that. And you burn a little bit of money, and it affects them, and it helps them, motivates them to make a shift. And that's what we're talking about here, is making a shift in your thinking. You have to get serious with yourself, okay? So shift your thinking from concrete, shift your thinking to concrete thinking, from abstract to concrete. And instead of saying why, say what can I do? What are the possibilities? What is available to me? Who could I talk to? What one action can I do to make things better in my life? What can I do today to shift my thinking? That can almost be a prayer, and God will give you some direction. What can I do? All right, number 5, focus on your values, and those are your values that's important to you, and because oftentimes this overthinking pushes you away from those long-term values, and you get obsessive in your thinking, a fear of things instead of the faith to move forward. You can retrain your brain if you choose to do that, if you put energy into it. See, you trained it to be the way that it is, and it's just doing the way you trained it, okay? It's just trying to work for you because you've asked it to do that. Now you have to retrain your brain, and it's way harder to retrain than it was to train to start off with, but it is so healthy and so important. So we need to ask ourselves questions, to help us to see what we need to do to alter those thoughts that we have, and we need to practice what it is that we would like to be, want to be, need to be, and you will be. Number 6, last one. Use distraction wisely. Distraction is a beneficial tool, but oftentimes it's used way too much. You can fall down a rabbit hole of distraction if you're not careful, because it can distract you from one thing, but that distraction can be, cause you to go too far. It can help you to break a habit, but then if you're not careful, it can become the habit. You can do things like watching TV or Netflix or Facebook or TikTok or whatever as a distraction to keep you away from certain things. But if you're not careful, then you can get caught up and lose your life in some of those things that were meant to be healthy distractions, and they move from being healthy to unhealthy. Okay, they can be as addictive as what it was you was trying to get away from. So we want to rewire our brain, make new habits, and be aware and notice and think about it. Okay, let me just touch on these skills again. Notice and name it. Set limits on your overthinking. Shift your attention from overthinking. Notice you need to notice the present moments. Okay, smell the roses. That's my wife always tells me. Okay, and shift to concrete thinking, and focus on your personal values, those things that you really, really want in your life. Because oftentimes we focus on things that are important, but not as important as some of those other core values or things that, it's kind of like what is going to be the most on your deathbed? What are those things that you can see? There are some exercises about deathbed, but I can't go into that right now. So I'm just going to conclude. But you got to face your problems. We have to face it. We have to spend time on dealing with it. We have to get real instead of denying it, and then we'll actually then be able to have time and energy to care for things that we really care about, to live in those things that we really care about, to be with the people that we really care about, the things that we value most, that we want, that will that we've always said, but sometimes it slips to the side. So Psalms 139, 24 and 23 and 24, it says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Teach me. We're asking him to guide us and teach us, right? Teach me and know my anxious thoughts. Know my issues, my problems, my pitfalls. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help us. Help us, Lord. Help us. Help us. Help us. My prayer is that you become more aware and allow this truth and the Holy Spirit to help you. 24. Point out anything in me that offends you. Lord, I want to be aligned with you. I don't want to offend you. That's what I really want. If it's a bad attitude, if it's sick thinking, we got a pretty good idea what a lot of that is, but sometimes it slips through. But I'm giving you permission. And lead me along the path of everlasting life. Life more abundantly. I hope this has been helpful. May the Lord bless you, keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you his peace. One translation talks about him smiling upon you and giving you peace. That always does something to me. Hey, this week is is Easter Sunday week. I recommend you be in a place where that you can connect with God and God can connect with you. If you don't have a church, here, come and be with us here at Central Christian Center. We're going to have a little different service from what I understand from Pastor Hank. Sounds good, but it'll be a special time. And then of course, enjoy the rest of the day, because we're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And because of that, we are atoned, we are forgiven, we are cleansed. We are, through him, in right standing with God. So, till next time, take care of yourself.